This is a 1926 Ford Model T, and if you remember my last lesson on Model Ts, this would make it one of 13.5 million Model Ts ever made. This Model T rather, is referred to as a Frontenac. So, what we need to do to learn about a Frontenac or a 1926 Model T Frontenac is that we need to talk about Louis B. Chevrolet. Louis B. Chevrolet, let's just call him Chevrolet, was born in the 1800s, late 1800s. And he worked for his father for a short while, and that's where he learned about mechanics. His father was a watchmaker. Louis took off and started to make and modify bicycles. And then the automobiles started to become popular, so then he became involved in automobiles, not necessarily manufacturing them yet, but racing them. And he raced for Didion Bouton. He moved to Brooklyn, he raced for Fiat, and he became very, very well known as a race car driver, which is why William C. Durant, his middle name is Crapper, came to Chevrolet and said, well, come to work with me at General Motors. And he became the driver for Buick for General Motors. And he was fairly successful doing that. And then they named the automobile Chevrolet after him. So here he was working for General Motors, representing the Chevrolet, and Durant came back and said, we need to make a lower price model because everything that you've invented and put into this is too high rent, and we need a lower price car. Well, Chevrolet didn't want anything to do with that, so he let himself be bought out of his stock for General Motors. He really, in hindsight, should have stayed there. He would have passed away as a millionaire in 1941. So he left General Motors, went out on his own with Durant, and they started another car company. The next car company they started, they called Frontenac. Where did that come from? Well, there used to be a governor of one of the northern colonies before they became states in the Northeast, and his name was Frontenac, and he was highly regarded, so that's what they named the car. Now, Louis B. Chevrolet was still into racing, and as a matter of fact, all of that stuff happened in 12, 13, 14, and 15. By 1920, there was a Chevrolet race car in the Indianapolis 500, and it won. They also won in 1921. I think in 20 his brother was driving. I forget the name of the driver in 21. But it was just a fantastic car. And why was it fantastic? I'd like to show you. So this is what's important about the Frontenac. Overhead valve. If you're not a mechanic, or if you're not an engineer, or if you don't know anything about engines, that's okay. Understand that early cars all had what we call, they were flatheads, and the valves were in the block. This is the block down here. So the valves were sticking up this way. But a much more efficient way to get the exhaust out and to get the fuel in was with overhead valves, valves that came down this way so that the fuel would come in better and the exhaust would go out better. This is a Frontenac overhead valve engine, and it's very efficient, and it made this Model T very fast. Well, the Frontenac company finally failed, and Louis B. Chevrolet was out of a job, and that's unfortunate. He worked on airplanes and boats and other race cars and so forth, but for all intents and purposes, he was out of the car business. However, this remains. This is a 1926 Frontenac. This is a race car, this is a hot rod. It can be driven on the street. I think its best use would be as a rally car in the Great Race, or in one of those rallies that Rex Gardner puts on. This would be perfect for that, because it is a hot rod. And it's going to be sold October 21st. We have an auction October 20th and 21st, and this will go on Saturday. I have no idea what its value is, but we're going to find out. Hope you join us there. The Branson auction, October 2021, the Branson Convention Center. Thank you.